بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, in today's talk about the life of Uthman bin Affan radiallahu an, the series of talk that we started a couple of weeks ago, today is the fourth talk in the series of talks regarding the life of Uthman radiallahu an. And as I have mentioned in the previous talks as well, the way we're going to go is we'll talk very briefly about last week's talk and then continue on today's talk. And as far as last week goes, we talked about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's closeness to Uthman bin Affan's closeness to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we talked about his role in some of the battlefields and some of the accusations that people have mentioned about Uthman bin Affan. We clarified those specific ones, especially about Battle of Badr and Battle of Uhud. And as we talked about Battle of Badr, the first one that was between the Muslims and the Kuffar, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded Uthman bin Affan to stay behind in this battle. And the ones who are the enemies of Uthman radiallahu an, they have tried to use this as an excuse to say bad things about Uthman bin Affan, like if I call him mudslinging or whatsoever you want to call it. And he was what they say that he stayed behind in the Badr and he did not participate in the Badr. Hence, he was not among the ones who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised the people of Badr, the participants of the Badr. While the story is a bit different than the way it has been mentioned, as we discussed last week. First of all, it's not that Uthman bin Affan did not want to participate in the Battle of Badr, which was not even known to the Sahaba that it was going to be a battle. They were thinking of going after the caravan to begin with, but even that Uthman bin Affan wanted to join, and he stayed behind because of his wife Ruqayya bint Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam radiyallahu anha. She is the one who was severely sick, and she needed the attention, care, and Rasulullah sallallahu commanded Uthman to stay behind in Medina to take care of Ruqayya radiallahu anha. And not only that, she actually passed away during this time before even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned back from the Badr. And she was actually buried prior to the return of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Medina from Badr. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself mentioned that Uthman was as a participant of the Badr, meaning that as far as the ajr goes, he will get the ajr of the Badr. And also Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a share from the spoil of war of the Badr as a participant of the Badr. So that's the story behind the Badr, as we discussed last week. And when it comes to Uhud, we talked about that as what happened in the Battle of Uhud. That there was a rumor went around that as if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was martyred, was killed. And when this happened, there were three different groups of the Muslimin at that time. They turned into three. They split kind of from the perspective of the responses. They split into three groups. One was the one who continued to fight. Second group was the one who was very confused about hearing the news of the passing away of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or being martyred. And the third group that was Uthman part of is the one who turned their backs and they ran towards Medina. And so they left the battlefield. Now, in this case, there are a couple of things about this. And as this is one of another part about Uthman that have been used against him without the complete information, because Allah Azza wa Jal specifically talked about the people who turned their backs in the Uhud, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al Imran, that إن الذين تولوا منكم يوم التقى الجمعان إنما استزلهم الشيطان ببعد ما كسبوا ولقد عفا الله عنهم إن الله غفور حليم. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned very clearly about the specific group, those of you who turned back on the day the two hosts met, referring to the kuffar of the Mecca and the party for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the battle of Uhud. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the shaitan who caused them backslide, meaning retreat and run away from the battlefield because of some they had earned, or sins they had earned, but Allah indeed has forgiven them. This is the key thing to remember. وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them. In Allah, once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives somebody, after that, that action really does not carry any weight, because that's the key thing. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives somebody, that's all that matters. And that's what is the case of Uthman bin Affan and all the ones besides Uthman who retreated in the battlefield without the consent from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, so that was forgiven. So the problem, a couple of problems here. One was we mentioned was why the people who talk about Uthman not talk about the rest of the Muslimin who from the Sahaba, Ridwanullah alayhim, may Allah be pleased with all of them. They don't talk about any other of them besides Uthman. That's one aspect. Second is, if Uthman would have stayed and everybody else around him was retreated, that makes no sense for Uthman to stand there alone from the battlefield perspective. But all these things have actually does not bear any weight. Main thing is Allah Azza wa Jal forgive. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgiven Uthman and all the Muslimin who retreated in the battlefield, then the case should be shut closed, and we don't really have to talk about that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about that. And that's the case about the Uhud. Nobody's saying that this was not the action of Uthman. All the historians, they talked about that. They talked in the manner that's a mistake from those Sahaba. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them, and this is how we look at the things. If Allah forgave their mistakes, and that's all it is. And that's not the case for anybody. And then last week we also talked about very quickly about the campaign against Affan and Turiqa. Today, as I mentioned last week already, that inshallah we'll talk about two specific incidents that happened in the life of Uthman bin Affan while Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was among them. So we are specifically talking about the actions of Uthman bin Affan while Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was there, and how what was his behavior about those specific campaigns, or you want to call them battles that happened under Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's leadership when Uthman was there. One thing I forgot to mention was the other two that we talked about, against Affan and Turiqa. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left Uthman bin Affan as the caretaker of Medina. And this was one of the things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do. Whenever he was going away from the Medina, he would left somebody behind him. Of course, whenever Rasulullah chose anybody for a task, he or she was the best person for the specific task that the person was chosen for. And Uthman was one of the best among them, who was left behind to take care of the people of Medina. Or in other words, he was a representative of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That shows the closeness of Rasulullah sallallahu to Uthman and his status in the sight of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, talking about today's talk, as far as today goes, as I mentioned, today we'll talk a little bit about the incident of Treaty of Hudaybiyah, or Sulh Hudaybiyah. In that treaty, what was the role of Uthman bin Affan? We will not go too much into the detail of the treaty itself and what are the other things happened that time. Rather, we'll talk from the perspective of Uthman's role in this treaty. We have talked about the Treaty of Hudaybiyah in previous talks, especially when we were talking about more detail in the when we were talking about the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then also we talked during the during our talk series about the Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu's life and Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu as well. And the idea was to talk about, when we talked about Abu Bakr, more of his role in the treaty, or Umar, his role in the treaty. And now we are talking about Uthman, so we will concentrate more on the his role, Uthman radiallahu anhu's role in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And then we will briefly talk about the campaign of Tabuk and what was the role of Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu. Now, as far as Treaty of Hudaybiyah goes, so we, as we have discussed previously, just to summarize that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw the dream of doing the Umrah, or going to do the Umrah, and that was a sign for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to go and perform Umrah. Now, keep this in mind. This is something that's happening in the 6th year after the Hijrah. And a few battles have already happened that included, I'm talking about just the major ones, besides the small skirmishes that happened. The major ones, that was Battle of Badr, Battle of Uhud, and the Ahzab. And Ahzab, which is referred as Ghazwatul Ahzab or Ghazwatul Khandaq, Battle of Trenches. That was a major battle that happened, and that was in the 5th year after the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in which Meccans not only attacked Medina with the Meccans, rather they took the help of the other tribes around the Medina as well, outside the state of Medina, and hence it is called Ahzab, or the different parties were. There was an alliance of different tribes who were going against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the army that they accumulated to attack Medina was an army of about 10,000. So now, this just happened about a year, probably around a year before this Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And now in this treaty, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was actually going to perform the Umrah as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him. Now, whether it was supposed to be done now or not, that's something that we need to understand. The command was to go for Umrah, not necessarily to perform Umrah right at that year. But as we know, the Umrah was performed the following year after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was signed between the Meccans and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that treaty itself was a victory for the Muslimin. Because number one thing that happened out of the treaty was the kuffar of the Mecca, they really recognized the Medina state as a powerhouse, and they accepted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the ruler in that sense. And they did create, when they signed the treaty, that's a sign of acceptance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the head of the state, and now they're dealing with another state. So that's one aspect of it. Second, they ceased fire, meaning now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a chance to concentrate the other areas surrounding of the Medina and further away from Medina, meaning even the superpowers of that time, Persia and Roman Empire or Byzantine Empire, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam send the letters of the da'wah to them to call towards Islam, and many other tribes, as we know in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it was a great political move. There was no compromise in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made in Hudaybiyah, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out victorious. And there was a great victory for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba in battle of after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was a victory, as Allah Azza wa Jal himself has declared that as a victory. Now, so when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to perform the Umrah, so going back to how the Hudaybiyah or Treaty of Hudaybiyah happened and what was the role of Uthman. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going towards Mecca to perform the Umrah, they halted at Hudaybiyah, and from there Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent a representative towards the Quraysh to show their intent, that they were there for the peaceful intent, and to perform. The desire was not to fight; it was just to perform the Umrah. And the month that was decided to do the Umrah was one of the sacred months. Hence, to show that this is they are not there to fight. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam decided to send one of the representative from him to go and talk to the Meccans and show their intent of not fighting and to perform Umrah. Now, to do that, first Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent one of the Sahabi named Khirash ibn Umayyah al-Khuzai, and he mounted, and one of the reports talk about on the camel of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the name of the camel was Ta'alab. And when he entered in Mecca, the Quraysh actually killed the camel and wanted to kill Khirash as well. But the Habish, they stopped them, and Khirash bin Umayyah was able to come back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and inform them what happened. Now, this was an interesting situation that happened, and now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to figure out how to convey this message to the Meccans. Before I go there were many other things happen. As I said, we're not going to go into the detail regarding what are the other incidents happened in Hudaybiyah, how the Meccans were trying to, some of the people, they were trying to go and fight against the Muslims. Also, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was continuously avoiding any of these kind of things, and even some of them were captured, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam released them just to show their intent was not to fight. But so this is not what we're going to talk today. Rather, we talk about more of what Uthman's role was. So now, at that time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wanted to send Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu to go and negotiate the situation of their intent. Now, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu to do so, so Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, he apologized to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said that he preferred not to go, and suggested to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he sent Uthman instead of him. And not only that, he just said like this, that okay, so does that mean that Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu was disobeying Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No, rather, and this is what we see among the Sahaba whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Sahaba about doing something, and if they thought of something different to be done, they would ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about whether this is a command from the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it is just his own decision based on the circumstances, meaning it's a mubah for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba to do certain action. It could go either way. Now, in this case, Umar did not just refuse, he apologized first of all, and he also said if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he really wants him to go, he will go. But he explained why he was saying Uthman should be the one who should go in return. One, he said that he was from the tribe of Banu Adi, and he said that because of his stance against the kuffar of the Mecca, they will not leave him alone, and he does not really have any protection from Banu Adi who would protect him there. And he said that Uthman, who was from Banu Umayyah, he has better support in Mecca, hence send Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu to go instead of Umar bin Khattab. Now, when he explained the reasoning behind it, and also mentioned that if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam want him to go, he would still go, but he just gave reasons for his not going. So, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted that, and he did not reply back to Umar. As a matter of fact, because Uthman very clearly said, Umar very clearly said, and I'm going to quote some of the reports that talk about what was the wordings of Umar. Umar said, I fear, quote, I fear for myself with regard to Quraysh, for they know what hostile I am towards them, and there is no one there from Banu Adi who could protect me. But if you want, O Messenger of Allah, I will go and meet them. And then he said, Rasulullah did not reply to him anything, and rather, and Umar continues on. He said, but I shall tell you, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Rasulullah, of a man who is held in high esteem in Mecca and who has more relatives and is better protected, Uthman bin Affan radiallahu. When Umar presented the case like that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called up Uthman bin Affan radiallahu an, and he said to him, go to Quraysh and tell them that we have not come to fight, Rather, we have only come as visitors to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and want to visit Haram, and they have the animals for sacrifice also, which is called the hadi. And this is and when you come with these animals, normally there are some symbolic things that you put around those animals that show that these are the animals to be sacrificed for the Umrah or for the Hajj. So they did have animals as well, to just to prove them that this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was there for. Now, what happened was, Uthman, when he was called for, he went right away, and Uthman went to a place which is called Baldah, and which is a place very close to Mecca. So this is where he met the Quraysh, and they asked Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, where are you going? And he said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has sent me to you to call you to Allah and to Islam. So now, not only Uthman went there to present his own, what Rasulullah asked him to just let them know about our intent about doing only the Umrah. Rather, he also started conveying the Islam again to them again, and to remind them the purpose of appointment of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the messenger of Allah. And so he said to them, and he called them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islam, and to call them to enter into the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that for Allah will make this religion, his religion, prevail and will grant victory to his messenger. So your other option is to leave him alone and let other people. So Uthman is saying, if you don't want to enter into the fold of Islam, which is something Islam highlights a lot about this idea of, we don't force people to become Muslim, and it's not allowed for a Muslim to force anybody. Hence, the option was not that they're there, okay, so now we're going to threaten them to become Muslim or anything. Rather, he's saying it very clearly that, okay, if you don't want to accept this idea, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have the options. Rather, either you become Muslim and you will become the part of the victory that Allah will grant to his messenger, or you leave Rasulullah alone, and he will deal with the rest of the people, and he will fight whatever the fighting happened between Rasulullah and Muslims and the other people. That's how it's going to be, and you can sit back and watch. If Allah grant Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam victory, then if you want, you can join at that time. That's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or if Rasulullah, the other people, they beat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then okay, so the others have taken care of something that you want to be involved in. So the tone was there regarding that part of the treaty as well in the wordings of Uthman bin Affan, besides carrying the message of Islam to them. And then they said, we have heard what you have to say, and they literally denied that it will never happen that we will enter into Islam by force. So he said, just go back to your companion, tell him that he is not allowed to come to us. And one of the reports talked about that Affan ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, he is the one who stood up, and he welcomed Uthman bin Affan at that point, and offered him protection and said, I think you will get what you want. So Affan bin Sa'id Sa'id ibn al-As, he is the one who gave protection to Uthman bin Affan, and he dismounted from the horse that he was riding, and he made Uthman sit in the saddle, and he rode behind him. Now, this is as we have talked about various times in previous talks, whether it was Sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or life of Uthman or Abu Bakr, that some of the tribal norms of that time, if somebody from a tribe gives protection to somebody, then the person is under the protection of the whole tribe, or even in some cases, even the allies of those tribes will also defend that person, and others will not harm them unless otherwise it can turn into a battle between the specific tribes that gave the protection. So here he was given the protection. Now, when Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, and he entered into Mecca, so now he started going to different leaders of the Mecca turn by turn. He met Abu Sufyan, Safwan bin Umayyah, and some other leaders of other leaders that he met even at Baldah as well. And they all saying that Muhammad will never enter upon us. And the mushrikeen, they suggested, not only did they said Rasulullah will not be able, they will not allow him, but on top of it, they also said, okay, Uthman, if he wants, he can perform the tawaf. They will allow him to do the tawaf and he can go back. On which Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh, he clearly denied that, and his response was that he will not do that if Rasulullah is not allowed to convey to do the tawaf for the Kaaba. So he rather will not skip his tawaf as well if they don't allow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Uthman bin Affan, when he was staying there, so he continued to do the da'wah for some of the people, including some of the weak people over there who were oppressed, and he gave them the glad tidings regarding that the victory will come to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah will grant him victory, and upon that, those people who did accept the message Uthman was offering, they conveyed their salam to, they say, to give it to Rasulullah sallallahu, pass it on to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Basically said and they were thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and saying salam to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the messenger of Allah, the one to find, and their wordings were somewhat like this, reported that when they were referring to Allah, the one who has enabled Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to camp in Hudaybiyah, and they refer to it as the center of or the bottom of Makkah, or the center of the Makkah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be there. Now, when all this was going on, there is, because Uthman's stay became longer as he continued to go to different leaders, he continued to talk to the people over there as well. There's some rumor spread out that Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh, he was martyred. When this rumor came out, now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he found out about this news, he took the bay'ah, which is called Bay'atul Ridwan. And also the bay'ah, or the pledge of allegiance, the Rasulullah took. It's also called the pledge of allegiance under the tree, because there was taken this was taken under the tree. Now, so Sahaba, when Rasulullah asked for this bay'ah, as different reports talk about that, one of them referred to this bay'ah as is that in al bay'ah kanat ala sabr, that it is for the to be patient, please persevere. Other one says that the Sahaba, fastajaba Sahaba fabayuhu al al-maut, that they give the pledge of allegiance on the death, meaning they will fight until death for if Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu was killed. And the second report said it was on the perseverance, and the third one, another one says that wa fi riwaya ala adam al-firar. Adam al-firar mean that they will not retreat. If we really pay attention to all three, the wordings are used for this bay'ah, I refer to that. All three of them are saying the same thing, which is they will fight until death. Because if they're not going to retreat, that's the same thing. They will not run away. If they say that they will persevere, they will do sabr. Sabr means that they stick with what Allah has commanded. That means the same thing. And the maut is the maut, which is the death. So in all cases, they were very keen about giving the bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All the Sahaba, they gave the bay'ah to Rasulullah, except Al-Jad ibn Qais, which is reported as he was one of the munafiqeen. And Allah alam, the truth about this one, but this is one of the reports that talk about that. Now, when we, the ones who gave the report talks about the first person who gave the bay'ah to Rasulullah was Abu Sinan, Abdullah ibn Wahab al-Asadi, and then the rest of the people came for fourth. And the Salama ibn al-Akwa, he gave allegiance in the beginning of the allegiance. Bay'ah was taken in the middle and at the end, so he gave the bay'ah 3 times to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is just to make sure he is part of the bay'ah. He didn't want to miss anything, I guess. So he gave the bay'ah 3 times. And when it came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he put his right hand and he said that this is the hand of Uthman radiallahu anh, and he put his other hand as this is the hand of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's a very interesting statement that was made about that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this bay'ah that was taken under the tree and the people who gave the bay'ah as well in Surah Al-Fath. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُبَايِعُونَكَ إِنَّمَا يُبَايِعُونَ اللَّهَ يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about those people who gave the pledge of allegiance to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that they are giving the bay'ah to Allah, and the hand of Allah is over their hands. Support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them. فَمَنْ نَكَثَ فَإِنَّمَا يَنْكُثُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. And whosoever breaks his pledge, he's breaking it for himself. وَمَنْ أَوْفَى بِمَا أَحَدَ عَلَيْهِ اللَّهَ فَسَيُؤْتِهِ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. And the one who fulfills his pledge of allegiance, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him abundantly. Now, there's a hadith of Rasulullah which is mentioned by Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anh, that talks about the people who gave the bay'ah, and after that Rasulullah said on the day of the Hudaybiyah, he said, Antum khairu ahli al-ard, that you are the best people on the earth. Now, remember that they were so these Sahaba who participated in the Bay'at al-Ridwan, or the one who were there for Sulh Hudaybiyah, normally the number mentioned is 1400. Some of them have mentioned 16, 1700. 1400 is I have seen many more places. So whatever the exact number was, and this is what we see in many times, when this number specifically is not the big of a deal, you don't see the exact numbering or mention or anything. So main thing is talking about all those Sahaba who were there for the Hudaybiyah. This is what that was referred to. But of course, we know that even at that time when Sulh Hudaybiyah was happening, there were Muslims in Mecca, there were Muslims in Medina, and even other places as well. So now, unfortunately, people have tried to use this, even Sulh Hudaybiyah, as an incident to be used against Uthman, as Uthman was not present in this bay'ah, which is kind of a senseless kind of accusation about Uthman. Uthman was the one who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent towards the Meccans, and the rumor was that he is the one who got killed. So how can he be among the Sahaba to give the bay'at to Rasulullah? That's one aspect. Second is, it is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. He is the one who placed his right hand and referred to that right hand as the hand of Uthman radiallahu anh. And that's an important thing to remember, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has referred his right hand as the hand of Uthman. So from that angle, if you think about it, Rasulullah made him a participant of that bay'ah as well. So even from that perspective, somebody comes that he was absent, it's from the hadith of Rasulullah, it is not really considered as absentee. Rather, he was present in a different way, as Rasulullah represented his right hand as a hand of Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh. So now from that Bay'at al-Ridwan and the Sulh Hudaybiyah, we can see some of the very interesting, exclusive kind of qualities Uthman bin Affan had. Number one, he's the one who Rasulullah appointed as the one to go and talk to the Meccans. But if for different reasons, as he is the one who had he had some power in the sense of he had support from his tribe, from Banu Umayyah, and he was protected, safe because of his status even among the kuffar after all those battles happened, because of the affiliation of Uthman bin Affan to his tribe of Banu Umayyah. Now, that's one aspect of it. Second is, Rasulullah did never put anybody, he did not put, at least as of now, Hudaybiyah, that he did not use his hand to represent somebody else's hand for a bay'ah or something. He only used Uthman's hand. So that's a interesting quality for Uthman bin Affan. And when Rasulullah when Uthman bin Affan was even asked to perform the tawaf when he was in Mecca at the time of Hudaybiyah, and he's the one who refused to perform the tawaf of the Kaaba, even though it was not commanded by Rasulullah, he was not aware of it, but Rasulullah approved of his not doing the tawaf, or refusal of doing the circumambulation of the Kaaba that Uthman did of his own. So, and then the last thing is, when it talks about this angle, is it is a false accusation that was made about Uthman bin Affan for not being present or being absent from the Bayt al-Ridwan, while he's the one who's missing, because of which this whole bay'ah was taken. Not to mention that Rasulullah used his hand as the hand of Uthman bin Affan. So that's about Uthman's role when it comes to Bayt al-Ridwan or Sulh Hudaybiyah or Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, another battlefield in which Uthman played a very crucial role in a different way was his generosity, his wealth that Allah blessed him with, and that was a campaign of Tabuk. That campaign, or that ghazwa, that happened in the 9th year after the Hijrah, and that's after Fath Makkah. And by the way, between Sulh Hudaybiyah and campaign of Tabuk, the Fath Makkah happened as well, as we know. And during that time, Uthman bin Affan is the one who kind of gave the protection to Akramah and one of his the brother who was his foster brother, who was nursed by the same woman, Saad, and he gave them the protection because they are the one who were who Rasulullah ﷺ commanded to be killed in the opening of the Makkah, which is there were some specific people who harmed Islam quite a bit, but they became Muslim, and Uthman bin Affan is the one who brought him to Rasulullah ﷺ and gave his protection at that time. So that's a separate one more aspect of it between Treaty of Hudaybiyah and the Tabuk. Now, in the Tabuk, as I was saying, it happened on the 9th year after Hijrah, which is after the opening of the Makkah, conquest of Makkah, which was in 8th year of the Hijrah. Now, in the 9th year after Hijrah, Heraclius, or the king of Byzantine Empire, now he wanted to go towards the Arabian Peninsula, and he basically wanted to absorb the Arabian Peninsula into his empire, and he was aware of the activities of Rasulullah ﷺ at that time. When Rasulullah found out about that now Heraclius is gathering his army to attack the Arabian Peninsula, so Rasulullah started campaigning between the Sahaba, and that battlefield happened in the time, it was a summer, very, very hot weather of summer, and not only that, but it was a drought season was going on as well. So it was difficult for the Muslims to travel. This was almost a month-long distance that need to be covered. So there was this journey was filled with hardships, with the drought, and besides that, Rasulullah basically called for whoever able bodies were available at that time to be the one to be participating in this battlefield. Now, besides that, they were going up against the Byzantine Empire, a superpower of that time, and Rasulullah started building up the army, and the different numbers are mentioned. More than I was talking about 30,000. Strong army was built at that time to go after the Byzantine or the Romans, and when Rasulullah urged, and of course he urged them to donate as well, and this is an interesting thing to see that Rasulullah was, when he was urging them, there were women who actually gave the jewelry also, and to prepare for the army. And Uthman bin Affan, he actually played a huge role in the building of this army, or to preparing the army. Rasulullah he actually looked at the huge rank of the men who were preparing for the battle, and he said, "Who will equip them, and Allah will forgive them." So the number of people who were there, Rasulullah was looking forward to equip them for fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Rasulullah said, whoever helped them to help Rasulullah to build the army or to prepare them, he will be forgiven. And Uthman bin Affan, when he found out, he hastened to seek the forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he wanted to spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are different numbers have been mentioned by different scholars, different reports regarding how much help Uthman bin Affan did. One of them says he gave 940 camels, and then he added 60 horses to make it number 1,000. And one of the reports says that he brought about 10,000 dinars to equip the army. Now, either way, these numbers are very big. 10,000 dinar, if you want to calculate, one dinar has 4.25 gram of gold, and 10,000 makes it over 40 kilogram of gold. So, and that's, we are referring to millions of dollars that in current times, if we try to find the value of it in today's time. But another report talks about he gave 1,000 dinar, and one says that 3 times he gave 1,000 dinar, which becomes 3,000 dinar. Whichever the number was, main thing was that he equipped the army very well, and to the point that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in one of the reports, talk about that the amount of dinar that he brought, it was placed in front of it, and he was playing with it, and you can see the shine in the eyes of Rasulullah, being happy, pleased with what Uthman bin Affan provided to equip the army. And Rasulullah says, "Ma darra Uthman ma amila ba'da al-yawm," that Uthman will not be harmed by his deeds after this day. And he said it twice, as reported by Imam Tirmidhi. And another report, which is also from Jameel Tirmidhi, it says, "Ma ala Uthman ma amila ba'da hadihi, ma ala Uthman ma amila ba'da hadihi." I repeated twice, which means is nothing could harm Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, no matter what he does now. See, which means we remember that Uthman bin Affan is one of the Sahaba among those 10 who was given the glad tidings of the Jannah in this dunya. And besides all that, he was also multiple times, we will see that he was said things like that by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When it says that nothing will harm him, meaning he is the one, if he has committed any sin after that, they will not going to harm him, but rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven him, and he will be, he's from the people of the Jannah. As I said, when it comes to number of dinars that he placed, and one report says that he gave 1,000 dinar in his garment, Rasulullah garment. And when Rasulullah was equipping the army of Tabuk, Rasulullah started turning the coins over in his hand and saying, "Ma darra Uthman ma amila ba'da al-yawm." And this is a very interesting statement from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Messenger of Allah, the one who says that things from which is part of the wahy. Of course, Rasulullah himself is not the one who can guarantee these kind of statements. It has to come to him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the status of Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh, that briefly we talked about in last 2 talks, week before, last week and today's, that what was his role in some of the major campaigns, of the battle campaigns that Uthman bin Affan participated in. So inshallah, if there is, we'll stop today's talk here, and we'll look into other roles that he played in the Medina while Rasulullah was there from next week. But that was the one about the battlefield. And if there is any questions or comments regarding today's talk, inshallah,